If you are a do-it-yourselfer, you have your garden plan or your design put together, you may now be wondering where you can go to source plants for your project besides just your local retail nursery. This video is inspired by a comment by Ann B. Thank you so much, Ann, for sharing this. Ann was wondering, where do you go to source plants? You know, you can order plants online. There's pros and cons to this sometimes. Of course, you could get plants from other people through all kinds of resources like apps and marketplaces. Then, of course, you can go to your local retail nursery. But besides that, maybe as a do-it-yourselfer, how do you source those plants? Maybe how do you find some local plant sales? That's what this video is about. Understandably, there isn't one perfect solution, but the reason I'm making this video is because over my years working as a landscape designer and just being a plant nerd in general, I have learned a few tricks. A few tricks for do-it-yourselfers who are not ordering plants through, their landscaping company, through a designer, or through anyone else who has access to wholesale plant nurseries. And by the way, my name is Eve Hanlon. I'm a landscape designer. I'm a horticulturist from the Pacific Northwest corner of the USA, and this is Garden Project Academy, my new YouTube channel and business where I'm creating online courses and resources to help you with your next garden project. I am new to YouTube, so thanks for being here. And if you want to get involved, follow the journey. I've got my newsletter linked below. I have a free mini course, which is called How to Choose the Perfect Plant, all about putting the right plant in the right place. And just links to other things in the description below that may be helpful for you. So thank you so much for being here. Please remember that everything in my videos are for informational, inspirational purposes only. I am not your landscape designer. It is up to you to decide what is best for you and your yard. A great place to find new nurseries is to track down any local, regional plant nursery maps or lists. And these sometimes will include your more common retail nurseries, but they often also include smaller or more specialty plant nurseries that you may not already be aware of. If you can find such a resource, then visiting the nurseries that you haven't been to from this list can be so much fun. Nursery associations or similar industry associations will often create lists of the local nurseries that join their organization or membership, sometimes for free, sometimes for a little bit of a fee. And in return, they promote the nursery, usually through databases or map tools on their website. You can also get printed versions of these maps sometimes at the participating nurseries. There are also sometimes specialty nursery associations for certain regions as well. Search online for any organizations kind of like this in your area, and then reach out to them and see if they have any such retail nursery maps or guides for your region. The term specialty nursery refers to a plant nursery that specializes in a certain genus or plant family, and in my experience, this definition can sometimes be used pretty loosely to refer to what is typically just a smaller nursery with any kind of specialization. For example, a specialty nursery could focus on just houseplants or just conifers or a specific genus like maples, for example. This can be a great starting point to help you find some of those more interesting nurseries, but of course not all nurseries are going to be members of these organizations on these lists, which leads to my next tip. Now let's get a little bit more adventurous. This is how I find what I like to call backyard nurseries, perhaps my favorite way to shop for plants. This is kind of a term I made up. I don't know if this is an official thing, but these are just people who grow plants out of their backyard. They might have a formal business, they might not, but they generally sell to a small circle of folks who hear about their side hustle, maybe through word of mouth referrals, a small, simple website, a Facebook page, sometimes just a sign on the side of the road. These places are typically pretty off the map entirely and maybe a bit tricky to find. To start finding these nurseries, here's a strategy. You can start by searching for all plant nurseries on your favorite map app, and you'll notice some places will pop up that just aren't your big box retail nurseries, and they'll often have cute names or family names, and sometimes there's just maybe a phone number or no contact info. Then I like to dig deeper with a little online research. I'll just search for the names of the nurseries in my town and then collect what info I can find. Sometimes I'll find websites, sometimes Facebook pages, sometimes I'll just find a discussion online, someone was talking about the place. But what I like to do is with any contact information, preferably a phone number, I'll reach out to the place, I'll see what they're all about, and sometimes that's their only way that they do business is over the phone. I also recommend that you ask everyone you get to talk to if they know of any other cool small nurseries that they could connect you with, because a lot of times these people know each other. So ask the people at the nurseries, ask your gardening friends. You can also post on gardening groups on Facebook, for example, and ask about any cool secret nurseries that people know about. I've learned about some of the coolest small local nurseries this way. And again, many of these people who have these small nurseries, they don't advertise very much. There have been times where I found a place just because I drove by and I saw this really small nursery sign, a plant sale sign along the road. And of course, bring a buddy. Please don't get murdered at some nursery in the middle of nowhere after watching this video. Cool, thanks. Of course, these places aren't always going to have the broadest selection of plants, but they do tend to have incredibly awesome, healthy plants and often better prices than the big box nursery down the street. Now is probably a really good time to stop and address a really common concern at this point, which is who has time for this? How do you speed up this process? And there's not, of course, a perfect solution. You know, you can have that plant list ahead of time, have a pretty good idea of what you want. You could call, email ahead, make sure that these places have what you're looking for in stock before you head out. And I could make a whole video about this if you're interested. I don't want this video to be 2 hours long now and share all of that right now. So if you are interested, let me know in the comments below. My next tip for sourcing plants is to start researching local nonprofit and fundraiser plant sales and watching for when those dates come around. And this can be one of the most affordable sources for plants. These kinds of plant sales fill a very specific niche. It's a strategy. They tend to have great prices to draw crowds. They have low costs thanks to generous volunteer time, and they raise money usually for a cause or to support like a nonprofit program, something like that. So there's kind of a win-win-win here. There are for-profit plant sales and pop-up plant sales too, of course, and these can also be fun. Note that pop-up plant sales are similar to just, plant sales. There's a lot of overlap. It's in the name. A plant sale that pops up happens at a certain location at a certain time. Sometimes a pretty random place. Like I've picked up plants from a grocery store parking lot or a community center parking lot. I think that sometimes the difference between a plant sale and a pop-up plant sale, though a bit nebulous, that generally pop-up plant sales, you place your order ahead and you pick up your plants at certain locations. But again, there's a lot of overlap between these two terms and both can be both. So I'm lumping them all together here in tip number 2 because you can find out about all of these kinds of plant sales in more or less the same way. It can sometimes be hard to find these sales with just a Google search, for example, but of course start there, and I recommend marking dates, marking down any registration details or instructions ahead of time. Sometimes these plant sales are annual events, sometimes they are not. Take note of that. And I recommend just, starting a list and keeping track, checking in again sometime before the next event date so you can catch any early registration. Next, you can check out good old Facebook land and search for plant sales in the events section of Facebook first, then maybe search for posts where people are gossiping about local plant sales, or maybe organizations are posting just to their pages. That'll come up in the post section. Next, local gardening Facebook groups. Again, I talk about these all the time as being a great resource. My Facebook gardening group, my local gardening group, even maintains a list of these upcoming plant sales because it's such a common question. So check the page rules, the descriptions, the resources first, but then if you don't spot anything, be sure to post and ask what local plant sales are good and when they happen. Next, check out your local newspaper, especially in the spring. The events section can be great. And sometimes these local publications have events sections on their websites as well, and these are worth checking too. Next, ask those diehard gardeners in your life, the garden club folks that you know, they will know the good plant sales. Some plant sales will focus on annual flowers, others on native plants, others trees, shrubs. There are so many themes, and some offer a little bit of everything. So be sure to go to a few and don't give up if the first one doesn't seem very exciting. You can get some incredible things at these sales. Tip number 4 is a little bit less common, maybe a little more involved, but growing in popularity: organized plant swaps. If you can't find a local plant swap online or by asking around via the previous methods, maybe consider organizing one. And I know you have to be super committed to do this, but it is as easy as a bit of organization, and then everyone gets to bring cool things that they have extras of, and over a couple of hours everyone can trade things out and then take home any of their plants that no one else accepted so that there isn't a huge mess. You can do this with your friends. You can do this in your neighborhood, at a community center, with a local gardening club or organization. Actually, if you've ever done any of this and you have any tips for others, please share them in the comments below. In general, these plant swaps can be so much fun. You can get a lot of really cool plants for basically free this way. Common question about plant swaps: what if I don't have anything to share, or what if I only have a few things? Generally, people have such an abundance of things. Just in my experience, they have such an abundance of things that you can often go and just get plants and seeds for free. If there's any promotional materials for the swap, you might want to double check this, but I have found in general that if you don't have anything to share, you're going to be able to take home a bunch of things for free. Then come back next year and pay it forward. This tip is a little bit more controversial, so don't get all angry at me in the comments for suggesting it, but if you have a cool local wholesale nursery, you could ask them if you and your friends got together and placed a big order, if they would be okay with that. In general, just respect the wholesale nursery's time, their boundaries, be gracious and understanding of any no's. If you ask and if they are interested, then ask them what the minimum order would be for something like this, and if they can provide you with an availability list and a price sheet. Keep in mind that this can be subject to change. If a nursery doesn't have like an online inventory system that's kind of all synchronized, then you could place your order and some of the plants you order, may not be available, and expect that this is subject to change. It's kind of the nature of the business. A nice thing to ask is if there's a particular way you could format your order to make it as convenient as possible for them. Usually name, Latin name, including the variety name, the size specifically that you want. There can be product numbers sometimes, and the quantity then after that. Consider asking for the minimum order size for delivery and the cost of delivery as well. If you don't want to get them delivered, be sure to have one person pick up the order all at once. Don't have multiple people come and split up the order or pick up parts of it at different times. Take it somewhere, take it home maybe, and then divide it up with your friends. Don't do this in the nursery or have multiple people pick up the same order. Of course, this could be problematic for a very busy wholesale nursery. You will still need to pay sales tax depending on your regional laws, and also sometimes you'll still pay a percentage over the wholesale rate or even a retail rate in general. But regardless, it might still be really worth it for you to order from a nursery like this to get access to a wider selection just in one swoop. Again, this is kind of a weird tip. I've heard of people doing it and of some nurseries that are totally cool with this or even love it. Especially if you're a low maintenance, a gracious customer, and you place a hearty order, maybe if you get together with friends to do so. And I've also heard of nurseries that dislike this, and in my opinion, it doesn't hurt to ask. Try at your own risk. It could be cool. My last tip is to consider propagating some plants yourself. And I know that's probably not why you're here to watch this video, but it can be more feasible or a little bit easier than you may expect. Consider setting aside space in your yard for your own personal mini plant nursery or temporary plant holding area. And this can be a good idea anyway. If you are in the middle of a project, you're starting to collect plants, you have to order from multiple places, you're gonna need a place to hold these plants until you're ready to put them in the ground. Just make sure you have easy water access for irrigation, because things in pots are going to need water more frequently than things in the ground, and have what you need to repot plants as necessary so that they don't get root bound or otherwise unhappy while they wait. You can also plant things right in the ground and then move them later if it's not going to be too long. That can be a pretty easy thing to do as well if you're low on pots. I also recommend you get a good plant propagation book, ideally one that's encyclopedic, that gives propagation recommendations for specific plants, specific plant types, and different methods as well. An easy way to start is by asking your gardening friends if you can take cuttings or divide small sections from their cool plants. If you trade your gardening friends with some help with yard work or weeding, they will probably love you forever and also give you tons of plants. Remember to look around the edges of mature shrubs to see if any branches are naturally layering or propagating this way, where the branches have kind of bent down to the ground, they're already rooted. It can be as easy as snipping this away from the original shrub and potting it up. Propagating plants is a lot of work, but it also can be really special to look out at your finished landscape and know that some or many of the plants may not have existed if it weren't for you propagating them or helping them along. And this ties into one of my my personal favorite things about gardening, which is that people have been gardening since long before garden centers have existed. So if you are gardening on a budget, it is possible for you to propagate the really cool plants and still have really cool plants in your yard. All it takes sometimes is just a little, like a cutting, just a little twig or a seed. It's easy sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it takes resources and time and patience, but the time and investment can be what makes it so special. I want to mention again, of course, there's not one perfect solution to sourcing all of the plants for your garden project as a do-it-yourselfer, but I hope that this video has included some tips that'll inspire new ideas and help you along the way. You can check out some more information about Garden Project Academy in the links in the description below this video. I also have my free mini course, How to Choose the Perfect Plant, which will teach you how to put the right plant in the right place. It's a free mini course. It's an hour-long total. It's available online anytime to access it. All you have to do is create like a username and a password so it can kind of keep track of your progress as you move through the course. I created it because choosing the right plant for the right place is so fundamental to being successful when gardening. And so I just wanted it to be there for anyone who needs it. Definitely check it out if you need that. Link is in the description below this video. If you have any additional tips, how did you source plants for your landscaping project? If you have any advice for new gardeners, please share it in the comments below. Everything you share in the comments can be read by someone else who's working on their garden project. Maybe that can help someone else out. Thank you so much for watching.